This is the Nauticam LX100 housing for the Panasonic LX100, which is this camera. This is a housing that's been sent to me by Nauticam for testing. The first thing that you can notice about this housing is got literally a lot of controls: manual focus, aperture, format, picture format, various dials for exposure, zoom, another zoom lever, various controls for filter, shutter speed, a lot of buttons on the back. This is really a fairly complicated piece of engineering that we have, and the reason is that the camera itself has got this very peculiar mode of operation without a mode button, and that means you need to set it in a certain way. So for example, if you move the aperture outside of the auto mode, the camera goes in aperture priority. If you touch the shutter, it goes in shutter priority. If you leave both to auto, it stays in program, and if you touch them both, it goes in manual. Some people like this interface, some people don't. When I tried it underwater, I didn't find it particularly comfortable because I had to set the levers back to the auto position to make the camera go in shutter or aperture mode. I find that quite frustrating, to be honest. To put the camera in the housing is already a bit of a journey itself. You need to put it in a certain set of aperture, 16, 4:3 format and autofocus, and move this lever from this active position to inactive position before you open the housing. You need to do the same things with the camera, otherwise the camera will not fit inside. So move all the lever exactly as it goes to be able to actually insert the camera inside, otherwise it won't even be possible to actually do that. There you go. Push down the on-off button. The camera has got a vacuum detection technology with the switch on and off. If you don't have a vacuum valve installed, like in this specific unit that I have, it will only work as a moisture detector. Close the housing, and here we are. Can put it back into normal aperture mode, auto mode, normal formats, and attempt the switching on the camera. Camera goes on. You can see now it's in program because I put both lever in the automatic mode. Now this camera this camera has got a 24mm to 75mm lens, and it comes with this rectangular port that Nauticam has designed. This rectangular port gives its challenges because obviously all the kind of accessory lens for macro have a M67 thread, and therefore won't be immediately usable with this camera. You can, however, buy a dedicated accessory that fits around here to put your diopter, flip diopter. It's quite expensive at $220. You will also notice that the housing does not have the traditional Nauticam M10 mounting thread, but only has a cold shoe. Another characteristic of this housing is the port system, the N50 port system. You can see this little lever here, which allows you to take off this port. Now if you using this port, a rectangular port, you can use the whole zoom range of the camera, but obviously because of the magnification effect of water, when the camera is at wide range, you're only really working at 36mm, plus until 35mm the image suffers from pretty awful pincushion distortion and blurring at the edges. So for me, this port doesn't really cut it. I think Nauticam could have done just a normal M67 port. Even if it was vignetting, at least you didn't need the dedicated accessory. So for me, this port is not really particularly meaningful, and I will feedback that to Nauticam. There are other ports that come with this camera and with this housing, and they are optional. You see that that's the way you can remove the port. Probably the most useful port is the short port. You can install it on the housing which makes it look almost like a normal compact camera. The benefit of the short port is now you have an M67 thread to put your wet lenses on. The disbenefit is that you can only use the focal range of the camera between 24 millimeters and 35, which is fine if you're using a wide angle lens. I've tried this with the new Nauticam WWL1 wide angle lens and it works perfectly, 28 millimeters, actually 26 on this one. Also the Inon lens with dome work. So this port does actually resolve most of the wide angle situation. There is also another port, which I'll show you now. So this is the whole set of ports. There's a dome port, small dome port, that I got very excited about. You can see it's quite compact. It's a mini dome in acrylic, which restores the field of view of the camera in water. However, this dome only works between 24 and 40 millimeter equivalent, makes it totally useless for any decent close focus work, that I like to do at longer focal length. Right, so the first of the tip and tricks is to build your own diopter holder by recycling any kind of pieces you already have in your kit. You need 2 clamps, a 3-inch segment and a cold shoe ball mount, and then you can buy one of these Inon M67 lens arms. Solution is, it's not wonderful by any means, but it allows you then to use, to reuse the components you have to use a wet diopter with your housing. So I said, by no means the most elegant one, but it works fine underwater. Problem is obviously with the limited zoom of this camera, 75 millimeter, things do look pretty big, even with one of these diopters, and with 2 you barely achieve macro. You really need, if you want to use this camera, the LX100 for macro, you really need to buy the Nauticam CMC, which sets you, I think, another $320 away. So an expensive piece of kit. The other option that you have, if you don't want to invest in the Minidome port, you're obsessed by the possible highest quality, optical quality you can achieve, you can use the short port with the Nauticam Wetmate, which is slightly less expensive than the Dome. I think the Wetmate is running around $240, where the Minidome is $280. From the test that I've done, you can attach Wetmate from the short port. You can still use the zoom that the short port allows you to use, which is between 24 and 35, which is okay. 84 degrees to 60, quite good for sharks and similar. The quality in the corners is slightly worse than the Minidome, but not much worse, and in my opinion the image is actually sharper. So I would definitely recommend, if you do have already a Wetmate, not to buy the Minidome port, but just buy the short port. The short port is the best port for this camera, and the camera actually does very well at wide angle. It's got very sharp lens, but this system with the rectangular port really penalizes the camera, and it makes the whole kit really complicated, cumbersome and expensive to use, due to the number of accessories that you need to get going. The Panasonic LX100 is a very nice camera on land. The 4K works well and the control are okay for use on land. In summary, my whole review of the camera, including all the accessories, is that doesn't cut it. It honestly doesn't. I know there's some people, especially people that have shops and therefore sell the equipment, that rave about this camera, but to be honest, it's got so many limitations that it makes it extremely hard and not cost effective to use. At the end of the day, once you've added the whole set of ports, you still need wet lens on top for wide angle. You start thinking why don't I buy a macro four third and buy a fisheye lens? You still have to change ports. It's not a great flexibility. The camera has got only 12 megapixels, so that's not a lot to crop. Although the lens is extremely sharp, there's not a lot to crop, and this has definitely got severe problems in terms of macro because of the short focal length. So really a bit of a disappointment. Nauticam has put a lot of effort in this. They sent me this unit to stress test it and bench it. I took it into the ocean. The quality do look good, even low visibility. You know, the camera definitely can do the job, but I think this is a bit in the middle of nowhere between compact lenses, compact cameras, and macro four third. Is in a territory that, to be honest, is not where most of us would really want to go, and that's a bit unfortunate. So that's all. If you have one of those, I hope that you find the tricks in and around the ports useful.